Hello，欢迎来到赛后采访，我是主持人 Reirachu。首先，恭喜台北这一战队顺利的拿下今天本场比赛胜利。Hey guys, I'm Reirachu and welcome to the post-match winner interview. Today we've got J-Team support Enso. Can you introduce yourself, please? 那今天邀请到辅助位的 Enso 选手来到采访席，先跟大家打个招呼吧。
Hello， 大家好，我是 J-Team 的辅助 Enso。
So first, I want to talk about your match the day before versus BYG. What went wrong that series, and did you suspect before that game that you guys might actually lose? 那首先想跟 Enso 选手稍微聊一下关于前天败给 BYG 的那一场比赛，那时候是出了什么问题呢？然后老实说，那天赛前你们有没有考虑到会败给 BYG 呢？
在对 BYG 前，我们包括教练团所有选手应该都是还蛮有信心会赢下的，只是确实在当天比赛的时候，可能是心态上面跟操作上面都出了很大的问题，就发生了一些我们平常训练赛不会发生的失误，所以才会输给 BYG。
So he said that before the series versus BYG, honestly, actually, the team as well as their coaching staff had a lot of confidence that they would be able to take that series versus BYG. But he thinks that on the day itself, the team made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes, both in terms of mechanical skill as well as probably in terms of mentality, that usually these mistakes don't happen in scrims, and he thinks that those mistakes were why they dropped that series versus BYG on that day itself. So I want to ask next, of course, how did the team then bounce back from that loss, and what sort of adjustments did you guys make in the last 2 days? 那你们在这2天是做了什么样的调整呢？
在这2天做的比较多是心态上面的调整吧，就在打 BYG 的时候确实有点不太冷静，然后比较多抗激进的操作，所以失误也比较多。那教练团也有跟所有选手做沟通，说接下来比赛就是尽量冷静一点，不要那么急，就慢慢玩的话就能轻松的赢了。对，所以我们这几天做的比较多是心态上面的调整。
So he said that in the last 2 days, what they mostly adjusted was in terms of their thinking and in terms of their mental, because he thinks that when they were playing versus BYG, they were playing a bit too rushed, they were playing a bit too fast, and that actually caused them to make more mistakes in game. So what their coaching staff had told them for the last 2 days was just to focus on playing a stable, calm game. And if they did that, then they wouldn't make those mistakes and they would be able to win their following series easily. So in game number 2 today, Meta Falcon 5-banned out jungle, and then Kongyue had to whip out the Sejuani that he has never played before this season. So I want to ask, is that something that J-Team has practiced especially for playoffs, or was that something that you guys just had to get forced to pick today? 然后接下来问题就是关于今天第2局，就是被 MFT 5班打野位的时候，会不会是在你们的战队的预测中吗？然后空月又拿出了这赛季从未玩过的猪女，是不是 JT 是你们是逼不得已才选的吗？还是说你们是为了季后赛而最近有在练的
5班打野这方面有想过，因为空月本来就是在我们队里面最强的选手嘛，所以5班打野也是正常的，不 ban 的话对手玩不了。那猪女也是他之前在打比赛也比较常用到的角色，在打去年前年的比赛都有用过嘛，所以其实我们也没有特别准备，就是这是他的拿手脚，我们就当下适合就直接拿出来了。
So he says that personally, he thinks that Kongyue is the best player on J-Team. So he thinks that if the opposition teams don't try to 5-ban out Kongyue's jungle, then something has gone wrong. He thinks that it's kind of within the team's expectations that Kongyue will get a lot of jungle bans during the games. He says that even though Kongyue hasn't played Sejuani this summer, it's a champion that he's played quite a fair bit in the past as well, last year as well as the previous year before that. So it's not something that Kongyue doesn't know how to play, but it's also not where J Team like has picked something that Kongyo is really good at, but he has had experience playing Sejuani. So next, I want to ask you, because in today's series, you played both tanks as well as squishy supports, and you played both of them pretty well. So is there a type that you prefer, or do you think that you're better at one type of support more? 那接下来想问的就是今天这个系列赛中，你分别拿出了硬辅和软辅，然后两个都使用的相当上手。那Enso选手个人有偏好的类型吗？
我应该是比较偏向软辅去选的，但还是主要是看教练团决定要硬辅还是软辅做决定。如果队伍是需要硬辅的，那我当然就会玩硬辅。对。
So he says that for him personally, he actually prefers to play those squishy ranged supports. But he said, of course, depending on what the team needs and what the coaching staff tell him that he needs to pick, if they tell him that he needs to pick a tank, then of course he's going to make that type of decision for the team. So next, I want to ask, because you got the most number of MVPs on J Team during the entire of the regular summer season, plus there's support MVPs, which we all know are harder to get than any other lane. Also, the analysts and casters have been praising your performance recently, saying that you've improved a lot since spring. So I want to ask if you personally feel that you've gone through that type of metamorphosis to become the player you are now. 然后就在例行赛台北 J 战队中，就是 Enso 选手是拿到最多 MVP， 而且是偏少见的辅助 MVP。然后今年夏季赛Enso 选手也表现得相当亮眼，然后最近直播台也有一直在夸你说你从春季赛到现在就是真的是进步的非常多，然后你个人有感觉到自己有在蜕变吗？
觉得自己跟春季相较起来是有进步了，但是应该没有到大家说的相当亮眼，就是还有很长一段路要走，也有很多东西要改进的。主要还是因为队友的表现也很好，所以我才有可以拿到 MVP 的机会。对。
好谦虚。So he says that he thinks that he has improved, of course, since the spring split, but he doesn't think that it's to the level where people have been constantly praising him and saying that there's such a huge difference. So he does feel that he has improved. He thinks that there's still a long way for him to go. There are still many things that he can improve on. He thinks that it's also because his teammates, because of his teammates' good performances, that have allowed him to look good and to also bag those support MVPs. So next, I want to ask as well how J Team decides who to field in the top lane, because you've seen the entire split, even in playoffs, that the team has chosen to field Driver as well as Rock. What difference does it make to J Team's play style whether you have either player in the top lane? 那目前队伍先发上阵的名单是如何决定的呢？而且两位选手的上场，你认为在队伍风格上会带来什么样的不同呢？
上阵我们上路先发上阵的名单，其实就是看空月想要跟谁打的，我们就决定让谁上啊。没有，其实主要还是要看训练赛的表现跟团练的表现嘛。然后两位选手的上路玩的坦克跟斗士其实都差不多嘛，我觉得只是可能有时候在打 BO5这种类型的心态上会受影响的话，会做轮替。对。
So he said that the team decides who to field top based off of who Kongyer wants to play with that game or that series. And then he said, no, hang on. It's actually more than that. We also take into account recent scrim performance and which whether Rock or Driver has been doing better. He said that also in terms of the longest series, like the best of fives, they also want to take into account like who might have the better type of mentality to play in the longer series. So your next match is going to be an elimination match versus either PSG or CFO, both strong teams. Which team would you rather face? How do you think it will go? 那下一场就是要对上 PSG 或者 CFO， 然后也是个生死局。那Enso选手个人会比较希望遇到哪支战队呢？觉得会是什么样的对决？
应该会比较想要遇到 PSG 吧，因为相对 CFO， 可能 PSG 上路的角色池也相当受限一点，对，可能火龙的角色池会比较少一点。那当然主要还是我们自己的表现是最重要的啦，就是不管遇到哪一队，只要是正常的，我觉得我们只要是 慢慢玩，跟今天的表现差不多，应该都能轻松拿下。
So he said that they would, for him personally, he would rather face off versus PSG because he feels that if you're comparing top laners, he thinks that Hanabi in comparison has a bit of a more shallow champion pool. But he said that, of course, what's more important instead of who they're going to face is how their own team performs. And he says that he thinks that if J team can perform next week the way that they performed it today, then he thinks that they'll be able to easily take the series next week. Lastly, I want to ask, was J Team satisfied with your third place finish during the regular season? What is the goal for summer? 那最后一个问题就是，对例行赛获得的第3名满意吗？然后季后赛的目标会是什么？
第3名的成绩相对来讲一定是比较不满意的嘛，所以因为我们一开始也是以前2为目标的，但既然拿到第3名了没关系，所以我们季后赛一定会是以冠军为目标，而且我们一定会拿到冠军的。
好 so he said that of course the fact that they ended in third, they weren't too satisfied with that result because of course they were aiming to end first or second. He said that the goal for summer is that it's fine that they ended third. He said that the goal for summer playoffs right now is that they want to end first. And he said that they will definitely come in first and be the summer split champions. All right, thank you so much, Enso, for the interview. Of course, good luck for the rest of playoffs. 好的，那非常感谢Enso选手接受今天的赛后采访。当然要祝台北这一战队在下周的比赛加油，拜拜。